Now we go to, so this is perhaps the best idea on h3. This implies that maybe castle is the best move, perhaps. Which was played, by the way, by Caruana versus Magnus in one of their games. Queen c7. Okay, bishop g4 can be played. With idea on h3 to take on f3. Takes and play knight f6. We don't have here many games. Kramnik played it once versus Mirin, I think, in a rapid game. Is it a big deal for... is white slightly better? White must be slightly better. But, okay, what is... this is what your engine will tell you as well. There are many plans here. A white can play like what Mirin played, to play a4, knight e7, knight e2. And to bring this knight to c4. A white can also go for a plan which I think is reasonable. Bishop d2, with the idea to put this bishop to c3. Because in general I would like to have this trade because I have safer king. White should be a little bit better here. Knight f6 again runs into rook e1, castles e5. We get this kind of stuff, and here we have interesting situation because actually we have two rapid games. Giri played move e5, knight e5, knight bd2, b6, h3, knight c7, b3, bishop e6, knight e4. So he's actually building up his standard kind of situation. And now let's say if f5, again we can have ef6, ef6, bishop b2. This typical kind of play, probably with some small advantage, because it is not so easy to push g5 and then later find a good follow-up. White wants queen d2. Maybe white is slightly better, maybe not. This is an option. But I like much more how Magnus played it, because actually when he played the game versus Praggnanandhaa about I think maybe a week before I'm doing this kind of filming in this Oslo 2022 in April. It was a rapid game. He played first move h3. Why? Because he wants to say that actually h3 is useful move, because Giri also played, you know, e5, knight e5, knight e2, b6, and then he played h3. So he wants to say, okay, show me your move. Queen c7 happened. Maybe b6 is a better move. Because b6 is a standard move. Queen c7 is not clear if queen c7 is needed. It happened e5, knight e5, knight bd2. Okay, I want to jump and have my regular attack. Knight f4 was played, but now white is just better because we enter some kind of tactics. Knight e4, bishop e5, knight e5, queen e5. Here knight c3 was played, which is decent move. Queen c7, bishop f4, queen f4, rook e7. Okay, rook on the e file, and now also 7th rank. Bishop takes more or less only move. Rook takes. Okay, bishop c8. Rook moves. Not very clear. White is better and white managed to win. By the way, for people who are wondering why is this only move, why not, for example, queen g5 hitting the rook, and you have a double attack, you hit a rook and you hit a pawn. Well, it is less great, because problem is that I have move like queen e2, and now taking a pawn is going to lose a piece, because I hit a queen, and I hit a queen. So what Magnus did, did lead to his advantage because of a strong rook, and he won. But maybe even better is a move like knight g3, eliminating bishop h3 tactic. Queen must go to c7, bishop f4, queen f4, rook e7, and now we have again e-file matters, strong rook matters. Let's say queen f6, queen e1. Black does not have a good way to develop. Grabbing a pawn results in catastrophe, because c3, queen is cut off, rook is strong, knight will come to e4, queen can join any moment. Of course, this rook will move at some stage. White is basically winning. So that's why maybe on h3, b6 is the best move. But knight f6 is aiming to bring the game into this type of positions, which we were basically already looking. So queen c7. Queen c7 is independent move, aiming again to be able to push e5. Rook e1 and e5. Okay, going for standard kind of play, which makes sense. Can black do some sort of, let's say, useful moves, not showing his hand, like a5, perhaps? Sorry, rook e1, e5. He cannot do some useful moves because actually I threaten to push. This is not threat. So e5, what should I do? Standard plan, a3. White wants to push b4. Knight f6. If black doesn't want knight f6, the only way is to play move a5 to stop my pawn push. But it is not easy to stop it. Let's say bishop e3, b6, knight bd2. Knight f6, okay, runs into b4. And if knight g4, again, this taking doesn't make too much sense, because I got up my pawn back, everything is hanging. Knight g4, takes, take on c5, let's say knight c4. Okay, black has two bishops, but he has also a number of lousy pawns. White should have advantage. If knight e7, then actually b4 is not clear. Because, for example, take, grab. Okay, you don't have really good way to pick up a pawn because you're under pin. But on knight e7, probably c3 is quite effective. Because a4 does not really equalize, because b4, ab3, queen b3. This pawn is in this case weaker than this. b6 is weaker than a3. So let's say castles, a4, bishop e6, c4. And this pawn is a headache. White should be better. How much? Okay, I don't know how much, but this should not be equal, because this pawn is a headache. And also pay attention to that I always have these motifs. When you take, to grab on c5. So white has advantage here. If on c3 castles, okay, then b4. Again, ab4, queen a1, c4, white has some advantage. Because c6 is more of a headache than d3. And also, e5 is kind of a headache, because you don't want to play move f6, because if you play moves like f6 to solve it, you allow some moves like d4. If you don't play this, you need to worry about this pawn. So white is having some advantage here. Let's say rook d8, move queen, bishop a6, knight c4. Simply white is better here. And I guess this is the main reason why in the game between Caruana and Carlsen did not want to play move a5, because he understood that he cannot really prevent b4 push. He played knight f6, b4. castles. Magnus does not want to take because he understands that these positions are inferior for black. So he castled. But this will not really solve problems. Okay, if b takes c5, bishop g4 comes. And knight e7, and I want to take. Probably black is alright. Black will get his pawn back and will not be worse. Also, when I play knight e7, if you want to defend this pawn, I would have f5. But Caruana played move knight bd2. Okay, black has a small problem that he cannot leave this situation forever. Bishop g4. Now we get this trade. h3, bishop f3, knight f3. Should really black be happy? I don't think so, because white has a little bit more healthy pawn structure. And pressure on the queen side. Also, nature of the pawn structure, and we have just a dark square bishop, should favor me. cb4, because if black continues delaying it, white will play move bishop e3. You cannot delay this forever. So Magnus decides to take, and play a5, just to remove all the pawn weaknesses. ba5, rook a5. And here white actually did not play precise. This is a world championship match. White played move bishop d2 because I think he underestimated black's answer. A file is here very important. And white could have taken a file, but combining a file and the pressure to his pawn by taking rook a5, queen a5, bishop d2 tempo, queen c7, queen a1, tempo move, and after knight d7, queen a7, and rook comes to b1. It is not, or to a1. It is not easy to somehow judge this position. For example, rook c8 to be able to play move b6, rook a1 then, bishop f8, willing to play bishop c5, bishop e3. It is clear that white is having a pressure, because white has no risk. We have only one open file, which is a file controlled by white. How much is this white pressure worth? This is very difficult for me to say. I would say white is a bit better. Black can probably hold. This would be my gut feeling. But Stockfish gives me around +1. So he says actually maybe very serious pressure. But this is interesting way that actually file had to be taken. So actually Fabiano's strategy was perfectly good. To playing for this a3, b4 push and clean up, which Magnus did, take and a5, should not have equalized, because actually after rook a5, files matter in this line. And who controls it? In the game was playing with bishop d2. Fabiano obviously willing to achieve the same, simply thinking this is the same, calculating takes, knight d7, and okay, we reach the same position. Problem is that now there is move rook a8. And white no longer wins a file, which allows black to equalize. Queen b1, knight d7. Now we have same situation, but no longer file. Queen b4, rook e8, bishop c3, b5. Rook a8, rook a8, rook a1, rook a1, bishop a1. With rooks traded, there is no more pressure. Position is about equal. And game later on, queen a7, bishop c3, and now Magnus actually did another clever thing. He forced the queen trade, which is smart thing to do. Queen a2, because still white is a little bit more active. So queen trade is good. Queen a2, queen b2, bishop b2. they play this game another 30 moves, and game ended as a draw. So this pawn push plan proves to be effective, and I think actually that in these type of positions that also, if I have to give opinion about theory, I think actually that white is having some advantage castling kingside and focusing on this a3, b4 pawn push, and positions are actually dangerous for black. And that's why, maybe, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people choose for completely different setup, but playing e6, which leads to very different positions. And this is what we are going to be dealing with in the last part of this DVD on Rossolimo, part which has to do with Rossolimo.